Welcome to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers Podcast. Each episode will bring you conversations from business leaders and up-and-coming stars in the commercial real estate industry in Canada. Our guests will share their unique career journeys, passions, and advice on what it takes to be successful in this industry. This podcast is brought to you by Highview Partners, connecting people who perform in Canadian real estate.
I'm your host, Richard Costello, and today I'm pleased to introduce David Jew. David is a VP at Concord Pacific, who are widely recognised and most well known for developing some of Canada's largest mixed-use, high-rise urban communities, including those that define the downtown skylines of Vancouver and Toronto. David leads the group's investments and development activity, and he is also a director with CPA Capital, a Concord-affiliated investment company based in the US, which focuses on multifamily communities. David has a Bachelor of Business Administration from Simon Fraser University and is also a CPA. In this episode, we'll hear more about David's career background and how he made his way from public accounting to work on some of the largest real estate development projects across North America. We'll hear more about Concord Pacific and what sets them apart, some of their unique projects David has been a part of, as well as his lessons and advice for anyone looking to get ahead in the industry. David, welcome to the Real Estate Careers Podcast. Thank you for joining me.
Well, thank you, Richard. Really appreciate this opportunity to be featured as your guest.
I guess just as some background then, I'm interested to learn more about your decision to pursue accounting as a career when you kind of started out, and what influenced you to take this path?
Well, I think some of the family influences came in way early on in my childhood. Part of my growing up, I've become realizing that accounting or how business function really depends on accounting, and for the business owners to realize whether a business is profitable or not, and why that is very hinged upon the basics of accounting. And that is why early on in my education path, I took that on. And later, obviously, I realized that the accounting can mean many, many different things. And obviously, the business world is way beyond just numbers. So
I understand you worked in public accounting for a few years. What would you say are the biggest takeaways from your time in this environment?
Yes, my early career, I spent a number of years with an international public accounting firm. The practice was very much focused on risk management, auditing, consulting, looking at internal controls, looking at financial reporting standards, how clients represent their financial performance to different stakeholder groups. So the experience was very beneficial for me to be exposed to the variety of industries. And through that experience and process, really, it kind of broadened my perspective of different business owners, different level of executives will have various goals to achieve. The process of public practice also gave me the experience of honing a few things. For example, tenacity, being able to drill down on issues, and also the ability to look at, again, beyond just numbers.
I guess then, how did the interest in real estate come about? And how did you make the shift into the industry?
Real estate has always been part of my blood and passion. And even through the public practice time, I spent probably, I think, 6-7 years in public practice. I had a focus in financial services and real estate. I learned even more about what's involved in the real estate development business. The shift really came when I returned from New York to Vancouver. I was looking for a career change. And what triggered that is really, I was having a session with myself, thinking about what is next? What is the next career move, or what is the next stage I need to be in for myself? So for me at the time, I had a choice, and I said, okay, I was still young. It's not too late to make a bit drastic move to try something new, and still leverage what I studied, what I was able to accumulate through my past years of employment. And real estate was natural for me to dive into. And I asked myself, what did I really wanted to do? Obviously, looking at what is available in the market. Coincidentally, Vancouver was one of the most prolific cities for development professionals and development firms. And that is why I realized Vancouver is home, and it is a very good opportunity to come back into this industry and try something new. So that is why I made the shift.
So before you joined Concord, you worked for another Vancouver-based developer, also well known for their unique architectural designs. And I think it's rare for people to stay with one employer for the entirety of their careers, and especially more so in recent years, it seems. But I'm wondering, when you reflect back, what were the benefits of working for another developer before getting going with Concord?
I think when we look at different career opportunities or employment opportunities, for me, I always look at what can I contribute to that company or the group, and what would I be able to gain as a result. Every development company are different, should I say, or at least from the ones I've seen, either from business dealings or from my own experiences. Each are unique and function slightly differently. From what I can tell from my own experiences, Concord is a very well-run real estate firm, vertically integrating a lot of functions. My previous firm also has a lot of in-house capabilities. It also had a very creative mind from a development and planning perspective. I think the benefit of trying out different organizations is to be able to expose myself to the strength of each company and absorb. I still remember my first day of employment at this public practice firm you mentioned. Is the tip from a senior manager was, be a sponge. And I think that resonated in my head all the way through, is always be a sponge and learn of your surroundings, learn of the strength of different individuals, different processes. So what I was able to accomplish is appreciating my previous post at the other firm and looking at what was done and what really was successful with that group, and bringing it into my current role and integrating that as much as we can, so that we can always do something better. There's always room for improvement, and that saying is probably true across industries.
Turning to your current role and Concord more specifically here. So yeah, it would be interesting perhaps for anyone out there that's unfamiliar. Maybe what can you tell us a little bit more about Concord Pacific, and what do you think sets the group apart?
Well, we are very much a urban developer in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, and now Seattle, as well as in London, England. As most of your audience may know, our AMO is master plan urban high rises. What a lot of people don't know about is our footprint in other industries. For example, renewable energy, fiber optics, CRM software engineering, and some venture capital businesses. So from a group perspective, we are quite diversified, shall we say, than a typical real estate developer. My days at Concord evolve around a lot on real estate, a lot on hospitality, and a lot on this new fund management company that we have in New York City. So any day can be different. Every day is different, actually. I could be covering for things in Vancouver or in other cities that we're involved in.
Okay, that was kind of my next question in terms of what do you do in your current role, but it sounds like it's extremely varied. So
I feel lucky as well, because these kind of responsibilities are very dynamic and very exciting. My day job is really looking after opportunities in all of the cities that we're involved in. My evening job is looking after my 6-year-old son at home. So it's a good mix. Coming back to my role here on the ground, we're working on a lot of rezoning applications and projects, very large ones. Obviously, it's not just me. We have a fantastic team led by very, very seasoned individuals in Vancouver and Toronto, as well as in other cities. And I just came back from Seattle looking after a million square feet project that is a twin tower multifamily rental building right next door to Amazon's head office. And we know the multifamily business is red hot in the United States, and Seattle happens to be one of our new frontiers for Concord. So I'm spending a bit more time looking after that side of things. In Vancouver, we're pretty firm in all of our new efforts or new projects. And it's a wonderful team that's executing for the group. Being very fortunate, very fortunate. So,
and I mentioned kind of in your introduction, and you shared also the venture capital sort of activities, but you've recently become a director with CP Capital in New York, and I know that's keeping you quite busy as well. So, what can you tell us about this?
Yeah, it's a wonderful story actually. CP Capital is a fund management company. We raise funds and we deploy them as investors into a wide network of developers in the United States. How that came about was really it's my first time in my lifetime doing a deal completely virtually on Zoom without having to meet my counterpart in person. Because during COVID, this opportunity came about, and this firm became available on the market for purchase. And we bought this wonderful team out in New York City, but it was during shutdown. So none of us was able to fly from West Coast to East Coast without quarantining. And we just resorted to Zoom. So all of the consultants and lawyers and accountants were providing services to both sides virtually, and it was a unique experience, but it went very well. So we bought this company. Me and our partners in Seattle are sitting on the board and running with the executive team in New York City. The fund really focuses on primarily multifamily development strategy and works with a wide network of top tier developers in the United States to build what we call garden style suburban multifamily rental buildings. And looking at a lot of the institution partners that we work with, they really are seeking these type of products currently in the market. So I think the fund is well positioned right now, despite everything that's happening in the market. I think the long-term horizon on multifamily is still very strong. So.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's no doubt got very competitive to acquire sort of existing assets. So being a part of developing new assets must be an attractive proposition.
Yes.
Yeah. Just kind of speaking about some of the development projects that you've been involved with over your career so far. I guess what are you most excited to be working on currently, and why?
What's exciting for me is being able to have the exposure on all of the product lines rather than just focusing on one tier of the product. And the benefit of that, both corporately and personally, is from a corporate perspective, it's a way of risk diversification and being able to slide in the market and weather any headwind in a market. We're able to function very nimbly, depending on in which position in a cycle we're in. From a personal perspective, it's also very rewarding because I'm exposed to different tier of market and different type of products. It's no longer a one person pigeonholed in a type of product. and also what it comes with is a wide knowledge base that I can be exposed to from different consultants, different advisors, and internally we have over 3 decades of knowledge base transferring from seasoned executives. And for me, and I'm not that old, right? I'm just in the 40s. There are a lot of things to be absorbed. Again, being a sponge. So I think that thanks to the Concord product lines and a wide selection of projects that we have.
And what about then if I can pin you down to one thing in particular? When you think back on your proudest accomplishment, let's say, with Concord so far, like is there a real estate development project that you maybe drive by or go and visit and you're like, yeah, that was pretty cool to be a part of? Like, what's the one that sort of stands out for
Well,
you?
I think through my time in Concord, I was fortunate enough to be involved almost all of the biggest deals in Vancouver. For example, the acquisition of St. Paul's Hospital, the Molson's Brewery, the Bayshore Hotel, and recently we're also working on rezoning for our Northeast Falls Creek land. I think for me, I drive by the town all the time, and every corner I go to, I'll see something that is Concord related, and that's very comforting and rewarding. On a weekend, I was biking with my son on Falls Creek, and able to point it to him. This building, that building was done by us, and when we drove by the Barras Street, my son asked me, Dad, you're involved with the St. Paul's Hospital development, right? So this is these are little bits and pieces in day-to-day life that reminds me how wonderful and how fortunate this is. So.
Did you say your son is 16 or 6 years old? He's
Are you looking for a trusted recruiter who lives and breathes Canadian real estate? At Highview, we bring over 30 years of recruiting experience to help steer you in the right direction. We are passionate about your success in this industry and will always do our best to provide you with all the information so that you can make the best decision for your career. Contact Highview Partners today to discover how we can connect you to people who perform.
I'm going to turn to, I guess, some topical trends, if I can say that. So, in 2021, Concord established a partnership with Cycling BC, which I guess that's kind of near and dear to my heart. Anyway, it's an organisation which supports all sorts of cycling programs throughout the province. And there was a bike festival in Metrotown, and this year there was also one at Falls Creek, so a criterium, a short track style race. I understand why you're doing this, to promote the cycling infrastructure within the buildings at Metrotown, etc. But I mean, how did this all come about? And maybe you can expand on how you see cycling playing into Concord's communities.
Sure, I'll let you into a secret. Is really it didn't come from a very complicated brainstorming session. What it was is during COVID, everything was shut down, and none of us were able to go to a gym or find a place to work out. Cycling was probably one of the few things that we were able to do. So me and a couple other individuals in a group kind of got together and started cycling ourselves. So I bought a bike from a shop in North Shore, and then I bought another bike soon after that, and then we started cycling because we got into it and we started trying to figure out, well, is Shimano 105 good, or is Ultegra better than 105? That's those kind of conversations, right? So very quickly, we became spec junkies of bikes. And started to bike around town, Stanley Park, and going to Richmond, going Cypress. Then we kind of clued in. Well, part of what we do during our business hours is really bringing communities together, and we have been doing that for the past few decades as a group. Cycling is a wonderful activity. Through doing it ourselves, we think this is something that has really some traction from all age groups, from my 6-year-old son to somebody who's a lot older and who wants to get some exercise in. We see people, we see seniors riding on the Greenway all the time in Vancouver, and we also see kids. So that blends very well with our business model and our belief in building communities. So last year we kind of started this cycling event. We call it Tour de Concord in Burnaby, and we had great support from the community, from the cycling community, as well as from everybody else, the neighbors, the retailers, everyone came out. And that kind of boosts our confidence in prolonging this effort and make this a annual event for the Greater Vancouver. And that's why this year in 2022, we hosted a bigger event at False Creek. This is our second event. So the hope is we'll do this every year, rain or shine, right? And bring in more and more participants and make this into a very family-oriented, community-oriented event, and also promote cycling, promote the health and wellness. Wellness is a big thing for our group. We look after how we design our communities, how we design our products, so that we can enable our residents, our buyers, to have a healthy lifestyle.
Just talking about the project out in Metrotown and how you mentioned the greenways, but I think a lot of people would be surprised if they don't ride their bike around the city, just how incredible like the infrastructure is in terms of getting from Vancouver out to Burnaby. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a very viable way to get around, and especially with sort of e-bikes becoming really popular now, it's nice way to get out of your car, I think.
Absolutely. And the technology is getting better and better. Bikes are getting lighter, e-bikes are getting lighter, and whether I'm able to handle a 70 kilogram bike versus a 7 kilogram bike, I think there's a big range of people who can get to this activity. So
well, shifting gears, excuse the pun. In light of the current economic situation with interest rates, inflation, etc., like how are you feeling about the residential sector at this current time?
I think that it really depends on which city we're looking at, and if we're talking about Vancouver, when we live in, it's our home turf, and our bread and butter town. We're still very, very confident of the growth pattern in Vancouver. And the residential sector has always been strong. We do see more immigration coming in, whether it's domestically from other provinces in Canada or from another country. And the job growth, the tech industry in Vancouver has become so strong that it is something that we haven't seen before, and we absolutely are blessed with what's going on right now. I think the only job for us is to be able to couple with that pace and provide enough housing for a wide spectrum of housing needs. I think that's the priority that most of us have to ask ourselves. How do we do that? And how do we work with the authorities together to make that happen?
Seems to be a lot more, I guess, conversation and people being on the same page about those three levels of government and the private sector all being a part of the solution now, which is quite encouraging. I mean, something has to give, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's encouraging to see the multiple levels of government are talking as well. Not they're just communicating one way, but they're also communicating both ways, and we see that, and also we see politicians also being mindful of what's going on in the market, and being the increase in construction costs, the volatility in the capital markets, in particular the interest rate volatility. These are realistic concerns that all of us are facing. not necessarily just one group versus the other, but most everybody in the world are facing these issues. So.
And on the topic of ESG, so this is a big subject and will only continue to be more important. What does this mean to Concord, and how are you incorporating ESG into your business?
Yeah, ESG is a very hot topic, and in fact, I'm in a process of working with my team and come up with a ESG focused statement, kind of capturing what Concord's position and approach would be. But knowing the framework of ESG, really, from a Concord's perspective, we have been practicing that. We not necessarily calling it ESG 20 years ago, but we've been definitely practicing it since a long time ago to really produce sustainable products, right? Using sustainable approaches at the time to develop and construct our buildings. And at the same time, looking at the best interest for not just employer itself, but both employees and employers, so that we're able to have a healthy team. So to us, this is what ESG is about. Now, obviously, today ESG as a term means many layers of details, right? It goes all the way down to how do you select your sites? How do you, whether you're looking for trans-oriented development versus not trans-oriented. What kind of materials do we use? What kind of scheduling technique do we use? This is just from a construction perspective, but also from design perspective. There are many details that we also work with our sustainability consultants day in, day out to come up with the best approach, best selection. And then from a governance perspective, I think all of us are looking at improving, whether it's from an IT security perspective, whether it is from an internal control perspective. I think most of the scalable businesses or companies in our realm are already doing that. And I think from Concord's perspective, it's a good time for us to gather all those informations and kind of encapsulate it into a statement. We have KPMG assisting us in doing so, and we've been receiving great feedbacks and advices on how do we best to capture that and communicate it to many different people that we work with. So.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Look out for it when you launch your statement.
And there's always going to be room for improvement too.
Of course,
right? So working with the process of arriving at that statement. Throughout that process, we kind of realized there are things that we can improve upon. So we'll be continuously looking out for those as well.
Well, turning to your advice now, David. So looking back on your early days, like what are some of the things that you did that helped you get ahead in your career?
Well, I started as a bean counter, as they say. It was a period I kind of trying to figure out what my next step is. And we talked about me coming back from New York. What's important, I think, as advice is always look beyond what's in front of us. And for me, I kind of took the route of deciding I wanted to jump in real estate, and therefore I will do whatever I can and absorb whatever I can. And as I advanced further into my career, it's really about being detail oriented. And there's never enough in terms of how much detail you can pay attention to. Obviously, it's a fine balance between time management and focusing on details. But it's important as a development person or investment person to really be able to read everything that comes across your table, to be able to get your hands dirty and not be afraid of getting your hands dirty. I think the last thing that people would want in doing what we do is staying on the surface. There's absolutely a high risk of just staying on the surface.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what advice do you have for anybody starting out that you wish you had received at the formative stage of your career? Is there anything that you know now that you wish you knew back then?
I was fortunate enough to have good feedback from my previous role. I had a good teacher. I'll call him my teacher. But I think advice for younger candidates would be: do not be afraid to start something that you believe in, and always ask questions. I know this sounds very dated because everybody will say that, but it's actually very, very true. Is always ask questions, but also be mindful of the soft skills and how to handle different situations in businesses and in life. It's true that many things will come with experience, but at the same time, also think about the actions before they're done. That'll help a lot, I think.
Yeah. So just taking pause, I guess, before responding in some situations.
Yeah, self-reflecting, taking pause, trying to read situations and figure out the best path, not necessarily for one person, but perhaps for most of the people at the table. And that'll go a long way.
Thinking about the development career path, what would you say separates a good from a great development manager?
Again, I go back to the detail-oriented attribute. I think a great development manager, that person would need a breadth of knowledge of different disciplines in construction, development, marketing, finance, and so on and so forth, property management. Every aspect is important. Another attribute would be for that person to pay attention to line items and details. Again, read every single page, read every single line on your contract, understanding what the terms mean. Too often I see people who just rely on advisors and other people and not knowing the details in agreement, and things, unexpected things would happen if you did that. So I think that's what separates, a development manager versus a great development manager.
What soft skills do you think then are important when working in real estate investments?
That's a very deep question, Richard. I think the real estate business is no different from any other businesses that involves with a lot of people and people from different disciplines, different backgrounds, because there are a lot of things that will go into a building, and a lot of conversations will go into the building. So the soft skills really lie with how the people handling skills and also self-handling skills. Again, reading situations, understanding and appreciating the person across the table, what he or she may want from the situation, from a business perspective and from a personal perspective. That'll go a long way. And I think what we do quite well at Concord is understanding whoever is on the other side of the table, be it the authority or the landowner or the subtrades that we negotiate with, or even our designers, advisors, understanding what their objectives are and appreciating it and be able to communicate that across. And I think that's probably the most important.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I'm going to wrap up here, David, with a few quick fire questions. If you could have coffee with any person, dead or alive, who would that be?
Well, Warren Buffett, if I can.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good one.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a movie more than once? What was it?
Oh, I would have to say Top Gun. That's my choice.
And all right, finally, if you could live anywhere else other than Vancouver, where would that be?
I will have to say Florence. I love Italy. I've been there a few times, and I like just sitting on the patio in front of Ponte Vecchio and drinking some cappuccino and enjoying the view.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, David, you're a busy man. I'm going to let you go, but I really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much for sharing.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Richard. And then I appreciate the time you spend with me, and also appreciate everything that you've done for our group.
Thank you.
So thanks
Cheers.
for that. Cheers. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you for listening to People Who Perform, the Real Estate Careers podcast brought to you by Highview Partners, a talent search and recruitment firm focused exclusively on Canadian real estate. If your real estate team is looking to find the best next hire, or if you're ready to make the best next move in your career, then reach out to Highview Partners today. Follow us on LinkedIn and visit us at highviewpartners.ca.